Hi everyone, it's David from Automotive Press. Guess what? The Lexus LC 500 Inspiration Series that I bought a while ago has just reached 1 year. That's right, I've owned it now for 12 months and I've got a lot of things to tell you because when you own this vehicle, it's a very different experience than actually just driving it for a week as a reviewer. And as you know, most car reviewers love the LC 500, but they've never owned it. So I'm going to give you a very different perspective on things I like and things I'm not too crazy about on the LC 500. And at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you whether I'm going to keep this car or sell it for something else. Let's go. Welcome back. So can you believe that the LC 500 has been in my possession for almost a year now? So I have driven it in many different circumstances, to and from work, long distances, short distances, also under heavy rain. Obviously I didn't drive it in any kind of snowy or slippery conditions because this is summer tires, but I have used it for many different reasons and I've got to really appreciate the car, but also there are things that I'm not too crazy about, which means that I might decide to sell it at this point, but you kind of have to wait until the end of the video for me to tell you my thinking around what to do with the LC 500. But let me start off with the things I like. As you know, I visited the factory last year where the LC 500s are being made, and it's perhaps the most beautiful factory with the most amazing craftsmanship and just a really impressive production processes. So watch that video if you haven't done so yet, because the LC 500 is built in Motomachi factory in a separate place under a very strict guideline and control. And that means that this might be the best built car in the world in terms of quality control, in terms of manufacturing. And this Inspiration Series for 2024, if you don't know yet, came with some special packages and special features, including this Polar Satin Surge paint, which is basically a matte paint, but it's actually semi-matte and it's kind of like a satin finish. And there's actually clear coat on top of this paint, so it's not a bare matte paint. So there is protection on this paint, and it has some interesting changes here, like these aerodynamic canards, which is supposed to improve the aerodynamics. It came with a special wheels and tire package. Of course, you can get the carbon fiber roof on other LC 500, but this Inspiration Series also came with a carbon fiber tail here, or the spoiler I should say, and that's unique to this model. And it's got the dark chrome both in terms of the back and also in the front. So it's got this kind of really cool design that is very unique even among LC 500. It came with the Michelin tires. And underneath, you got some other features as well, including some braces in the back. But unlike the performance package option you can get on the normal LC 500, it didn't come with a variable ratio steering, which is not available on the Inspiration Series. And also it didn't come with the rear wheel steering, which is kind of surprising to me, but everything else is fully equipped. If you look inside, this is perhaps the most special part of the Inspiration Series. First of all, it's a limited edition. Mine is 006 out of the 125, so one of the early production. And so there has been only 125 allocated for whole North America. And here in Canada, they only produced 10, 7 of which was convertible and 3 were coupes. So actually this is only one of 3 coupes in the Inspiration Series for 2024 in entire Canada, and I'm the only person who owns it in British Columbia or here in the West Coast. So definitely very unique, very exclusive. And this interior package is also unique to the Inspiration Series, which is this kind of medium indigo blue interior, and they just call it deep blue, but actually in Japanese they call it kachikara, which means winning color, which is a color that samurai used when they want to celebrate winning something, this kind of blue indigo color. And you'll see this blue color, like if you go to Japan in Kyoto areas, sometimes they use this color to dye a kimono or some other items you buy. So it's a very special color, lots of Alcantara finish everywhere, and perhaps this is the best part of the Inspiration Series. At first I thought the blue looks a little bit too much purple, but actually it does look like a deep blue, more so than purple in person. It might look a little bit different in the camera, and once you kind of get used to the basic look and feel, I fell in love with the color, along with all the changes that they made for the infotainment system and so forth, which included touch panel for the first time in the LC 500. So lots of good stuff. Interior is amazing, and of course things that didn't change is also amazing, and that really goes without saying is the best part of LC 500, which is a 5-liter V8 engine, the heart and the soul of this LC series. And this is the best part of the vehicle, the number one reason why you want to buy it and why you might want to keep it, because this probably is the best design and best built V8 engine in the world. But having said all that, there are also some compromises that this car has, because it is not a true authentic sports car in a sense like a Porsche 911. I recently drove Porsche 911, several different versions of it, both 2025s and 2024s, as well as driving some Boxster GTS and so forth from Porsche lineup. And I really realized that this car is really a grand touring sports machine or sports coupe, but not really meant to compete with something like 911, which has a better overall feel. And I'll get into that a little bit more as we talk about the LC500. But what about my ownership experience? Well, what I do really appreciate about the LC, and this goes along with the whole Lexus feel, is that this is your best kind of sports machine that you can use on an everyday basis. This car can easily be driven as a daily driver because it is so comfortable and refined and smooth, a lot like other Lexus models, but with the extra bonus experience of having this beautiful V8 engine. So if you want to use this kind of on an everyday basis, or you want to use it a lot, it is a very comfortable car. It's perhaps the most comfortable sports machine or sports coupes in this price range, because even though Porsche 911 might be a better sports car, it is pretty hard riding, whereas this one has a really comfortable ride, and it doesn't matter where I take it. Even if I take it shopping, it was quite comfortable. Obviously, it's not a practical car, but it's a very comfortable car to drive, and that's what I do like about it a lot. But it also means that this Lexus LC500 suffers from kind of numb steering. I think the engine is like top-notch, A+++, but the steering feel and the steering feedback, I have to give it like a B- or C+. I know they worked really hard to make this car handle better, and it does corner well, so it stays flat, and generally speaking, it can handle twisty corners really well, but there's not much feedback. The steering is light. I wouldn't say that it's like a Camry, but it does feel like a normal Lexus vehicle in terms of how much feedback I get. And it doesn't help that the steering feels over boosted, and therefore it's a very light as well. So that's something that bothers me quite a bit, because I really like cars that have a really good steering effort and steering feedback. Even if I'm not driving a sports car, even on a normal car, I like something with a steering feedback. And I always say Toyota and Lexus have a problem with that. They just don't seem to know how to bring that feedback into practice. And so even though I love the engine, and when you're driving it, you can downshift and upshift, and it has that beautiful sound with exhaust from the back, and the seating position, everything else is comfortable. And everyone looks at it. This is a unique car with a unique profile, and you just cannot get something like this for this price. I would even say it's a good value. Even this Inspiration series with all the options are still cheaper than Porsche 911. But when I drive it for fun, let's say on the weekends or on Sundays, do I truly enjoy driving it? Well, it's a kind of hit and miss. I love the engine, and that sound is just so mesmerizing. It's a music to my ears. But as I steer this car through some mountain roads or some curvy roads, I'm thinking, okay, I get no feedback. It stays flat, but just doesn't feel quite right. And that kind of bothers me, because they could have easily calibrated the steering to provide more feedback. Now, the good news is that, as you may know, I recently drove a 2025 LC500, and I did a comparison of that versus LC500 that I own. And that particular car did have a performance package, which includes the variable ratio steering. I'm not sure if due to that reason, but it did feel a little bit heavier, the steering, and it had a little bit better steering feedback, and I thought that was actually better overall. So it's possible that Lexus made some calibration adjustment for 2025 and made the steering just a little bit heavier with a bit better feedback. So if that is true for all LC500 moving forward, then I would say that's a good Kaizen or a good continuous improvement change, and I would give the LC500 a better mark if they continue to improve the steering feel. But the way it stands for me anyway, for this LC500, I don't enjoy driving as much as I should, mainly because of the lightness of the steering. But also here in Vancouver, I just can't get the maximum potential of this beautiful V8 engine. I can't really rev it up or go faster. I'm mostly driving in the city, and so it's kind of wasted, which means this entire car is kind of just sitting in my garage most of the time, because I can't really use it in the winter time. I can put winter tires on it, but it's going to be terrible in winter because there's so much torque in the rear wheels. It's obviously a rear wheel drive. And so that means I'm not driving it for 4 or 5 months of the year. And when I finally get to drive in summertime, it doesn't give me the same joy as driving, let's say, a Porsche 911 or something else. I've owned a Porsche Boxster GTS 4.0 before, and I gotta admit that car is way more fun to drive because of the sound of the engine, but also just the steering mechanism is almost perfect. And that's where I struggle the most about the ownership of LC500 because I'm not quite sure if this fits my need. Now, most of you guys think that because this is probably the last V8 engine the Lexus will ever make, and most likely they're going to discontinue the LC maybe a year from now on, that this should appreciate. But actually the history has shown that cars that has been discontinued do not necessarily appreciate unless they were made in very small volume or small numbers, which isn't the case with LCs. They actually have a lot of cars for sale in the used car market, in the new car market. So it is depreciating much faster than I thought. It's still better than other sports machines, but not as good as a Porsche 911. Those cars really keep up the resale value. Even though there are so many 911s around, it's still the most desirable sports machine. So I'm a little bit disappointed with the fact that this isn't keeping the resale value as high as I thought, and that could improve if I wait a couple of years when officially the LCs are discontinued. But in the meantime, I'm kind of stuck with a car that I call it kind of a bit of a compromise. And also I found out for some strange reason here in BC, the insurance for this car is almost 70% higher than anything else I've ever owned, including some of the Porsche models I own. And it might be something to do with the special paint or to do with the Inspiration series. But even our insurance agent, who is very experienced, can't figure out why the insurance cost is so high on this model compared to anything else I've ever owned. And it's even more expensive than Porsche 911 or other sports car when I do the comparison. So that's a bit of a surprise for us. Now here in BC, in Canada, we only have one insurance provider, ICBC, and that's part of our problem. Maybe the insurance cost is not an issue anywhere else in the world, so you're gonna have to check yourself if that is a problem for you guys. But for me, that is an extra burden that I didn't expect. And so those are the criteria by which I'm measuring, and I'm beginning to think that maybe I need to change this to something else, something that I can drive more often, including wintertime, and also maybe something that can give me a bit more of a feedback and a bit more of enjoyment when I drive. And so those are things I have to take into account as I begin to consider some options if I were to replace the LC500. For now, I'm enjoying it. It's a beautiful car, and let me share with you a bit more about the driving character of the LC500. So I'm back on the road with the LC500, and as I mentioned before, in terms of ride quality, in terms of refinement, smoothness, well, this thing is shockingly good. Even though it's a sports car, it's extremely comfortable, it's quiet, refined, and you won't even believe that this is an actual sports machine. And the heart and soul of this car is the engine, 5-liter V8, beautiful sound, amazing feel, and when you upshift or downshift especially, wow, that beautiful sound is music to ears, and it's something that isn't replicated anywhere else. I can't really drive the car too fast right now because I'm in a residential area, but I'll let you listen to the exhaust again. And the exhaust sound is especially impressive when you first start up the car. It just kind of wakes you up. It's better than having a coffee in the morning. And those are things I really love about the LC500. And those are the reasons why people buy and keep the LC500. But as I mentioned before, perhaps the Achilles heels is just a lack of steering feel in terms of the steering, in terms of the feedback, in terms of the weight of the steering. It's just too light. And there's not much feedback from the road at all. So even though that actually makes the car more refined and feel like a luxury sports coupe than a sports coupe, but at the same time for me, I need that feedback. I need to feel like I'm driving a sports car, and I need to feel that I can engage the car with the road. And that is something the Lexus is not very good at, as indicated by the Lexus IS500 that I also owned for a little while. That one also suffered from lack of steering feel. So I really hope that they could fix this one and learn from Porsche, because they have the benchmark when it comes to steering feel. Then the LC500 will be perfect. But until then, this car is a bit of a compromise in terms of being a sports car, but amazing as a grand touring sports machine or sports coupe. So you kind of have to decide which is a more important characteristic for you. Do you want this as a super comfortable, super refined, smooth grand touring sports machine, which means that this will be probably the best in the world? Or are you looking for a pure sports machine like the Porsche 911? In which case, this wouldn't quite be the right car for you. You should just buy the 911 because that one has the best combination of the powertrain and the steering engagement and just the overall driving feel. I don't think you can beat the Porsche for that, and obviously it's more expensive, and which brings me to my summary, which is the fact that this car is actually quite a good value because it's expensive, but not as expensive as the German counterparts or other sports cars such as Aston Martin or Lotus. So it's priced right for what it offers, and if you are lucky enough to buy and own one, you'll be very happy to keep it forever because it's a very exclusive and a very special car. But if you're like myself, who's always looking for the best combination of the driving engagement, fun to drive factor, and just the pure driving experience, then this might not be the best one, as I am finding out recently over a course of the last 12 months or so. Either way, very special machine, especially this one here as an inspiration series. So I hope you have a chance to drive it or own it at some point, and let me know in the comments below what you think of my 1-year ownership experience, because you probably won't agree with me and you probably think I'm crazy to complain about this car, but as you know, I'm a real critic and I'm very fair but also very analytical when it comes to car reviews, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I feel about the car. So if you do enjoy this video, please give me a thumbs up and make some comments, and if you haven't done so yet, would you kindly subscribe as well. Until next video, I'm signing off for now, and by that time you'll probably know whether or not I kept this car or sold it for something else. See you later.